Hey everybody, Aaron here. Welcome back to my anime review. Today we are looking at the Ousama Game, episode 12, so that's the King's Game, which is also the final episode of the season. Because as we unfortunately found out at the end of this episode, there is going to be a new King's Game, and yeah, I'm not happy about that, because I actually know where that's going with the story, because I know essentially the story even beyond the anime and the manga and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm not happy. I'm really not. But anyways, so this week's episode, we have the kind of, like I said, the series concluding on a note where everyone dies. Flat out like that. Yep. We learn a little bit more about the actual virus. We learn how it kind of spread from the village, obviously, then somehow went online, which still makes no logic whatsoever. I've never understood how that part works, but in more of a thing to explain it, because I did promise you guys if the show didn't explain everything, I'd give you a little bit more of explanation. So if right now, I'll tell you right now, if you want to avoid spoilers, you know, you can stop the video now, and for at least for the prequel manga. If you don't care about the prequel manga, I'm going to spoil it. I'll probably have a time to stamp appear on the screen saying when you could actually just go to that for the rest of my review. But in the prequel manga, where we see the beginning of the King's Game start off where the whole village, it's not just kids or students, it's actually everyone in the village is put into this King's Game. We learn two things about it. One, we learn it's based off a virus that apparently is able to go dormant in a human body. It makes your mind essentially cause whatever you think could happen to it, or whatever it's told that could happen to it, actually happen. The one of the main girls in that show, who was actually the girl, I forgot, or Natsuko, that's her name. They don't give her a full name, but Natsuko, you know, and not relation per se to the Natsuko we know from the show, but Natsuko herself was the one who actually started the King's Game in the village, made it so where anything she wrote would actually do it. But it seemed like the parasite or whatever virus type thing inside of her actually did take over her at one point, making it where she wrote worse and worse things as time went by. It wasn't really just per se what she wanted. She did that for reasons of basically she loved the main character, but they were cousins, so they really weren't, you know, liked in the village because of that concept. You know, it's like they didn't want, you know, cousins to get together. But, you know, her reason was that she wanted to kill off everyone in the village, and at least in her mind, and the virus acted upon that. We had one survivor of that King's Game, which is the main dude of that show, and he grew up and had kids, and actually two of the kids were Natsuko and the first girl, Shemi, because they were sisters. And he actually spread the virus without realizing it by him coming back to it, because even though the virus goes dormant inside of you, it always stays in you. It doesn't die. It just will go dormant and not be activated until a King's Game activates it. Now, that's where the kind of ending to that part goes and makes no sense, because it's like, how did the virus go from being inside a body to the online world? I don't know. They never explained that in the story. I can only presume that someone maybe heard about the story and then did something stupid with it, and then maybe when he left, and, you know, someone had put online about the King's Game, had made up all these stupid rules, and then started making it worse as they got affected, spreading the disease around and making it so the systems that actually do the King's Game would only get more and more cruel as time went by. It's ridiculous, to say the least. I legit think it's probably one of the stupidest plots in a story, but it has interesting concepts. It really does. But yeah, the thing was that they were able to survive the King's Game, as we find out, which is where the end of spoilers will be for a little point after this, where they actually believed that they won't get hurt by the virus, so they believed strong enough that they were not going to get hurt and not do what the orders were, and they were able to kind of go against the virus's will and survive it. So that's the only way to really actually beat the virus, is to truly believe without any, you know, doubt in your mind or heart that nothing will happen to you, and lo and behold, it seems like nothing will happen to you. That's the only way we've actually seen it stop the killing game. But then again, you know, you could also argue with the point that the girl died, and thus he was the only survivor. So realistically, was it a saving grace? Was it actually just being nice? I don't know. There's a lot of, you know, you can't take this as a virus like a super serious virus, because of the fact that it legit is a virus that's supernatural based. You know, it's not based off of logic or, you know, understanding. So it's like, you can't take it too serious. But anyways, going back to this episode, and this is probably where I put the timestamp, you know, making sure I gotta figure out when it's timed out like this. You know, the problem with this whole show is that it goes off of it not explaining enough to you, and especially the fact that you see the first manga not being even really being an anime at all. It was just more so they just started with the sequel, because I have a feeling that's what they want to go with the new story. They want to just kind of just jump into that. But the fact of the matter is that how they did it was so poor. And, you know, besides animation being lackluster half the time with the show, it just was just tedious to watch. Like, the stuff, half the characters were a bunch of idiots. All the stuff that was going on was a bunch of, you know, just, it's one of those shows that you've grown watching, to be honest with you. You know, the fact that everyone died at the end too is like, I don't know how I feel about that. It had a School Days ending where, you know, the girl dragged his dead corpse all the way to the beach, then kissed him, and then wondering why he's not talking. I'm like, because he's dead, you know, he can't talk anymore. But thus they prove that the King's Game continue on past that, because even though they both killed themselves at the end, we see the King's Game continue on. It's stupid. It's mind-blowingly stupid. That's why, you know, this whole show has been... It's probably one of the worst of the season, if probably one of the worst of the year. That's what I'll say. I still think Deus Ex might be slightly worse, but if I had to review King's Game between an A through F, I will give it a D- to pass it. Just barely passes. The only reason I will give it a passing grade is two reasons. One, I liked the supernatural element to it. I think that if it's more fleshed out and explained better, it would actually be decent, and I would actually like it more. But for what it is, I do like that supernatural concept, the supernatural virus. You don't see that too often in a lot of shows. And two, the opening. The opening and the music and the voice acting actually too were solid. I had no issues with those things. So that, you know, that saves it basically, but from, you know, completely failing. But other than that, you know, most of the episodes were terrible. Only one or two I really like were like, oh, that's not too bad. Even this week's episode, how people just basically killed off each other was just ridiculous. What did you guys think about? I don't really even need to ask, but I'll let you guys know. Tell me in the comments what you think about the King's Game. If you guys like this review, please think about hitting the subscribe button, share the video around, liking the video, and of course check out my Patreon for various rewards. I will talk to you guys later. Until I pass across again in the next review, have a good one, everyone. Bye bye.